So you're essentially a translator of brilliant minds for the masses. What is your framework for taking someone's complex and scattered thoughts and turning them into a coherent philosophy?
I don't think it's a framework so much as an emergent process. Like I just collect the things that I'm find useful. I collect the things that stand out to me. I think anybody like you could go write a book about Naval and like collect all of the things he's ever said, and you might pick out different pieces and you might build a different mosaic, and it might be equally interesting or more interesting to some people. But I think there's just some taste that we all have of what speaks to us, and then it's just a process of like staying with it for long enough to try to really hone and sculpt it into something where there's just not waste, not a lot of confusion, not a lot of fluff, and you're just like it truly feels like doing a giant jigsaw puzzle. But you get to like pick and choose your own pieces and like put it together into something cool. So I don't know. I'm not following a rigorous process. I'm just like, this is kind of the mode that my learning takes. I'm just like, I would build these books even if nobody read them, just because I feel like it makes me smarter and better and helps me install these ideas into my own head and improve my own life.
I think what's interesting is I've listened to and read enough of Naval's content to know that he wouldn't let just anyone do this, though. So, what do you think it was about either the wisdom that you have or that you were able to pick out from his stuff that got him to sign off on this type of project, as well as some of the other people that you have coming up next?
I actually I don't know if I have any special sauce there. Like I followed him for years. I learned a lot. Um, and I don't know if there was anything like special. We had some mutual connections, but like I didn't ask for any special access. I didn't have a pre-existing relationship. I just like sort of tweeted this idea. And Naval is pretty good about like letting people work on his work, like Akira the Don, like makes all this music remixing his ideas, and like people retweet his shit all the time or do threads that are exactly his threads all the time, and people grow their accounts based off of it. And he just doesn't seem to mind as long as it is like remixed and hopefully improved upon and spread. Like um, it feels almost like open source in that way. I think through the process, I did a good job of like showing my work, and so I would sort of check in with him quarterly. And I think a lot of people say they're going to do something and like don't actually do it. And so I think it may be, it's like a job interview where everybody gets offered the job, but most people don't show up, or if they show up, they don't show up for the 2 years that it takes to actually like complete the project and earn the job. So I just stuck with it, showed my work, and I really, there's an audience of one that takes. I wanted it to be something that I loved, but I also wanted it to be something that he was proud to be associated with. And so, like, I'm not known for being a perfectionist in my personal life, I would say, but like, I really wanted this project to be perfect because I wanted him to be proud to be associated with it, and that really like forced me to keep raising my bar and keep raising my bar and really put a ton of hours and a ton of money into making this thing like as good as I could possibly figure out how to make it in that particular moment. And I think that showed through. And I think that's part of like the success of the book is just like having that crazy high bar for it and making it something that he was like, nope, yeah, you sure put a lot of work into this. And like, I think we are all surprised by like how many corners of the world it's reached.
It is truly one of, if not the most impactful book that I've read in my life. It was given to me by my mentor, and it completely opened my eyes to the way I view work, the way I view life, and how I spend my time, right? And how am intentional in some of the things that I do. And everything I'm hearing from you is you are not a perfectionist, but this was something we were like, hey, I have to put the time and energy in. I want this to be special for me and for Naval to be a part of. What was it that drew you to his stuff in particular to take a more unorthodox route to writing a book than most people take?
Yeah. So what drew me to him in the first place, like I have been a huge Buffett and Munger fan for a long time. So I love Charlie Munger. Poor Charlie's Almanac is the reason that this book is called The Almanac of Naval. And a lot of what I appreciated about Munger, this like timeless wisdom, this focus on principles, this willingness to sort of zig when everybody else is zagging and uh, be a little irreverent in the service of truth, the service of wisdom. I saw that in Naval, but with a whole bunch of kind of more modern, like technologically focused mental models as well. Like, you know, if Naval is Silicon Valley's Charlie Munger, like that's me. I'm like the middle of those two. It's like I'm a Midwestern kid, hardworking, like family values. Um, Grew up in Detroit, but I also moved to San Francisco. I love like sci-fi and futuristic tech. I worked in venture-backed startups. I run a small, like crazy moonshot venture fund. And so to me, Naval is like the very center of two really core kind of pillars of my personality. And so I've been drawn to him for a long time, followed him for 10 years, learned a lot from him just through podcasts, through Twitter, all this stuff. And it really emerged, like the idea for this book came out of reading Principles and reading all of the books, the compilations of Buffett and Munger, like you know, the Berkshire Hathaway letters or like Peter Bevelin's books are, they're remixes of Warren and Charlie, and what they all they do is like do interviews during the annual shareholder meetings, and they write letters. Like Warren and Charlie don't write books; they give talks or they give interviews. But still, there's all these books about Buffett and Munger that contain their wisdom that was life changing for me. And I was like, well, this format sort of exists. Like, I wish Naval would write a book. He's probably not going to write a book. Like, I'm a huge Naval fan, have been for a long time. Like, I love writing, I love books. Like, maybe I can put this thing together. But I think there's something like, I didn't want to write a book about Naval. You know, it's like I think when I started this project, I was 27, 26, somewhere like late 20s. And I was just like, who am I to like try to rephrase the ideas of this person who is like brilliant and experienced and wise and this very like thoughtful writer, essentially, like on Twitter and as a speaker. He's just like every word is deliberately chosen. It's like I don't want to sully that with like my attempt at rephrasing things. So I'm just going to get out of the way. I'm just going to use the puzzle pieces that he gave me and try to build something that I would wish that he had written, but like it does still rely on my taste to assemble it and put it in this context. But I do trust myself to do that. Like, I think if I have any talent at all, it is in like recognizing the genius of others. And so that is what comes through in the books. That's what comes through in investing. Like that's what comes through in running a company, like hiring people and just like sorting through all the ideas that the team generates and being like, that's the one, like we're going to double down on that. Um, or hearing all the different customer requests and being like, that's the product we're going to build, like go on that. So it's really like, it's really just honing and honing and honing the system of like recognizing good ideas when you see them. And I feel like that's something I've been working on my whole life, almost accidentally, just as I read, as I listen, as I meet people, and just like appreciate the kind of ideas that they have to share.
Now, is this something that feels like play to you? Obviously, work comes with everything, but is this something that feels like play to you that's natural that only you can compete in?
I think so. I mean, this is a pattern that I see myself doing over and over again. You know, I really like my first blog was curating like timeless articles and stitching them together and trying to like learn and understand what was a new concept, a new business concept. So I would say, I'd go out to my email list and say, what's the most important or useful thing you've ever read about network effects? Like send it to me. And I would consume all these dozens or hundreds of things in like a week or two. And then I would write an article that synthesizes it, pulls out highlights, links back to the original material. And that was how I like, you know, that was my self-assessed MBA, was like doing just processing all this information and trying to create useful things and curating truly evergreen, really useful content. The blog was called Evergreen. It's all hosted on my personal site now, but um, I learned so much doing that. And it was just like, I have so much fun like turning over rocks and finding gems and like having these little aha moments. And then I get another like burst of energy and excitement by sharing them and seeing somebody else respond to them and seeing somebody else like have that same moment. And then we're kind of bonded over this new like shared idea that we both appreciate. And there's so many I don't know, there's so many little breadcrumbs, I guess, through life that once you start to see that pattern in your own behavior emerge, you're kind of like, oh yeah. And then these, like Charlie Munger has a quote, like the best thing that someone else can do is help another to know more. Like, or the acquisition of knowledge is a like moral prerequisite. Like, I'm butchering both of those. They're not word perfect, and they should be, but they're just like all those things start to stack up. And now, like David Deutsch is kind of the new like frontier of that for me, where it's like the root of all evil is ignorance, and like the process of gaining new knowledge is like an inherently human. That's the system of human progress. And so, like, we should always be trying new ideas, criticizing them, trying to come up with better explanations for the world around us that help us, improve and grow and build new things and understand the universe around us. And like, there's something very rewarding about being like tied into that on a human level and just making more of that progress through time.
I always reflect in my own life as I try and look and find my own patterns that have led me to a certain place. When did you start to notice the different patterns in your own life that led you to this unique skill that most people can't do? Was there an aha moment, or was it a string of events that led to this?
Oh, it's still a thing that I like forget and re-remember or gain conviction in over time. I mean, nothing's a straight line, right? Like, I don't think I'm a great writer, but I can show you moments in time where I learned that other people thought I was good, or that I realized I was better than I thought, or that I was surprised by reactions to my writing. Like, I still am not, I would not say like I'm a writer. Like, that is who I am. That's what I am. That's my unique skill. Like, um, I think I'm realistically above average, but I know so many people who are so much better than I will ever be that like it's still hard to be like that's the thing that I am uniquely. Um, but I do agree with that kind of like you combine a lot of different things that are authentic to you, and you gain conviction in them over time, and they probably change to some extent. But like this searching, collecting, curating, sharing cycle is like definitely a thing that over and over again I'm seeing sort of pop its head up. And then that gets reinforced. Like, you have to act on that observation to then see it get even stronger over time. So but I do a lot of things other that aren't directly that, and so it's always foggier than to us than I think it probably seems to other people. Like, other people in your life could probably tell you very more specifically or more with more clarity, like what those things are that are uniquely like authentic and unique to you that you can't stop doing, and that you do even if nobody's paying you to do it, and um, that you're uniquely known for.
That's fascinating to me that you did not have like the unique confidence that I am a good writer, or that there's things that occur in your life where people told you that, hey, you're pretty good at this, or hey, this is pretty unique to you, or hey, this is pretty special. And it kind of just like clicks for you. Is that something that is applicable to everybody? Or do you think people can build that awareness to where they're like, nah, like this is my skill set. This is what I can do. This is what I'm about.
Oh, I think everybody can build it, and it's a process of refining it and getting clarity around it and reinforcing it. And some of it comes from just like zooming out and getting a different sample size, right? Like, you were an athlete, so like I might meet you and be like, that dude is fucking jacked. He can do like handstand push-ups, he can do standing backflips, he can do all kinds of crazy shit that like my body will never do. Um, and you might not think of yourself as that because you go to the gym with all these even crazier athletes, and like you've been smoked by all these people in your world who are like 10% better than you. But to me, those skills are very similar, and like I didn't even know that other level of excellence existed, but you live with it every single day. And so I think some of it is just like remembering how average truly is. Like, when people are really dedicated, they get deeper and deeper and deeper into these subcultures of excellence, which is a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, that environment is making you better, and it's really helping you become even greater because you're forgetting how high up the curve you already are. On the other hand, if you're beating the shit out of yourself because you're like, oh, I'm still like, I'm not that good. I'm not a good writer. I'm not like that athletic, but you're actually in the top 1%. You just forget that the whole other 99% of the population exists. Like, there's a healthy version of that and there's an unhealthy version of that, I think. Like, and so, like, use it to get better while remembering that, like, you are still great. You are still making progress. You are still like, you can be happy with where you are, or you can be happy with what you are, where you are, and still striving for more at the same time.
Do you get to appreciate how you played a massive role in changing a number of people's lives? Like, do you actually take the time to reflect and understand that you are a pivotal piece in changing millions, if not billions, of lives?
Uh, no, like, not like I feel like there's a version of that that sounds bad, but like, I don't walk around all day like patting myself on the back um, for a thing that I did 5 years ago. Like, there are moments where I really do appreciate it, and I get incredible like DMs or emails from people where I do have that moment of like, oh, it's so good to know that you played a small role in somebody else's life changing. And there's like, so there's very specific anecdotes or people where moments where that happens. Like, this is one of them. Like, that's fucking awesome to hear. And I am like, I have a physical, like, beautiful response of appreciation and gratitude, and that's awesome. Um, but I don't think it's helpful to live in that all the time. But I carry that as inspiration for my next project, and as like motivation to continue to do what I do and to continue to share it and write the next book and do the next thing. Because I think that in some ways that's fuel. It's not why I do it, but it like helps me. It helps draw me towards that finish line a little bit. To know that like people are impacted, people are exciting, people are waiting for the next thing, um, or that they appreciate the work. But I would do it. I would do the work even if nobody read it. But it's awesome that millions of people get benefit from it. It truly is, and it's not why I do it, but it definitely helps. Um,
When you
it
have high achievers
raises
like
my bar even
yourself,
more.
and it's, high achievers like yourself, right? And I ask other like elite people, like you said, there's like the 1%, right? And there's levels to this. But I like to ask that question, like, do you take the opportunity to appreciate some of the work that you've done? Because it is remarkable. It does change lives. Whether you're an athlete, whether you're a coach, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an author, the work that you do matters and carries impact. And I don't think when we're going through it, and I was the same way as an athlete. Like, I didn't sit in those moments and appreciate them when they were there. Like, I couldn't appreciate the big plays I made or the impact we did, off the field with things. Like, you don't think about it in those moments. And then later in life, like, people will bring it up and you're like, oh, you know what? That was pretty cool, or that was substantial, or that did mean something. My problem with myself is I want to get better, and I have gotten substantially better at having the joy in the moments and realizing in the moment I'm doing something cool or special, or in your case, impacting billions of lives. And I don't know if that's unique to high performers, that they can't enjoy things in the moment, but how to get us there in a healthier, more perspective, or a healthier perspective.
So that's a good question and a good story that I think makes it useful. So I think the way I heard your first question was like, do you live in the past? Like, do you live in your past achievements? And like, not really. Like, I no. The question of like, can we be better at being present? Hell yeah. Like, there's a very unhealthy version of like, I'm always living in the future, that you can't appreciate the moment, you can't appreciate the accomplishment, you can't appreciate the achievement, the progress that you are experiencing in this present moment, because you're already focused on the next thing. It's already not good enough what you just did. And you have to, you're already planning for that next, the next company, the next investment, the next game, the next book, whatever it is. And I think that is hard. Like, on the one hand, that's probably a path to like Kobe and Michael Jordan. On the other hand, like, I think they spend a lot of time being very unhappy and very hard on themselves on the path. And if that's the outcome you want and that's the trade off you want to make, like rock on. Not my business. Understand what you're getting into. Go for greatness. Fuck yeah, I'm rooting for you. If you're like, I want to be a great husband, I want to be a great dad, I want to be a great brother, I want to achieve, some things in the business world or in the athletic world, but I also don't want to nuke the whole rest of my life to do it, then you've got to understand that like take those moments of celebration and live in that moment and be proud of yourself and have a healthier relationship with like yourself and those around you, because it's really hard if you don't have that root of like comfort within you, then like it's hard for other people to lean on you or for you to lean on them. So actually, like I think athletics is really good at celebrating the moment because you've got distinct wins. Like, did we win the game or lose the game? Did we win the championship or lose the championship? We won the championship. Hell yeah! Grab the Gatorade, like grab the champagne, locker room party. We're going out tonight. We've got a break before the next season. Like you got clear milestones and clear goals in a way that the whole rest of the world, I would say, envies deeply. Like, when do you celebrate as an entrepreneur? Is it when you hit 1 million in sales? Is it when you hit 10 million in sales? I hit the sales number, but like my margins aren't that good. I hit the sales number, but I had to take out a loan. So like I'll celebrate when the debt's paid off. Or like the book sold 100,000 copies, but it hasn't sold 1 million. My last one sold 1 million. I'll celebrate when this one reaches 10 million. Like it's hard to know when to celebrate in most areas of life and when to enjoy your progress and live in the present. Um, and one thing that like for the athletes, dude, I was like watching, I think it was an NBA championship, and I was watching the locker room champagne party, and I was like, that looks so fucking fun. Like, I'm so sad that I will never have that in like my career. And I was like, why not? Like, I can buy champagne. Shit's cheap. Go to Trader Joe's, get some $2 bottles of champagne. My buddy had a big like work event coming up. He was running an incubator, so he had an annual cycle where he would like graduate startups after his demo day. And so I got all our friends together, got a big group chat. We bought a bunch of champagne, and we like bought ski goggles and had a like locker room champagne party outside his demo day. And like it was this moment of celebration that we just like absolutely copped from professional sports, and try to like bring it in and have that moment of like this. We're making a memory. We're living in the present. We're celebrating your accomplishment. We're celebrating your growth. And I think there's a bunch of really cool ways to do that like healthy cultures can adopt. Um, but yeah, that difference between like past, present, and future, like live in the present, appreciate your growth. Um, I think is like the root of like a healthy, a healthy relationship with self.
It's funny that you bring up like the celebration as like, hey, that's our clear cut moment to like be in the moment. And sometimes I think it happens with a lot of guys that probably approach the game in an unhealthy manner. I was one of those people. When you're popping the champagne, you're in those moments, you kind of realize that everything that you've been working towards is more of a relief feeling than like a
Mm-hmm.
gratifying feeling. And I think that's one of the most parallel things that I've noticed going from athletic world to like entrepreneur life is you have this idea of what success is or a point that you can't wait to hit, and then you hit it. And whether there's a champagne popping party or whether it's just you by yourself in your living room looking at a spreadsheet or whatever, it's always that, well, what's next? And how have you in your own life maybe satisfied or fulfilled that point where you're not like, what's next? And it's just this continuum of growth and celebration when necessary.
I try to keep like for better or worse, I keep a lot of different kind of files open. So like I'm trying to build a business, I'm trying to build a venture portfolio, I'm trying to write some useful books, trying to stay in decent shape, trying to have a great family life. And so it's really like I think it removes some of the like massive pressure on one thing when you're like, all right, I've got a lot of ways to win, like every day, even on a shit day at work. But I get a couple good hours like playing with my baby, then like that can still be a great day, you know? Um, but that sense of like, the more Naval has really incepted me with this. I picked this idea up from the book, and I still am like untangling it because it's a super, super, super deep idea. But like understanding desire feels like such a such a foundational part of like the human experience. Um, and so it involves things like, understand that every desire is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. Right. And so
That's a
like,
banger. I use that quote all the time. Sorry to interrupt you, but like
no, please.
that hit me so deep when I've heard him and read about it for the first time. That
Yep.
exact quote and definition. And it forced me to be like, I can't have all these desires or else I'm going to be miserable. But continue.
Yeah. It's very, like there's a lot of things creating desire in us constantly, like unconsciously. And so I think, his prescription is like, a few desires carefully chosen, like few desires carefully chosen is sort of the recipe of a good life, because you're not running around desiring all these things that you don't actually care about doing the work to achieve. Like James Clear has a good thing of like, if you desire something, but you have no desire to do the work to earn it, like that is a very clear recipe for unhappiness, like permanent unhappiness. So like just reconcile that, just like get rid of that desire by understanding that you don't want to do the things that it takes to get there. And that's totally okay. Like nobody said you had to desire that. But like, Instagram has a way of, I can't conceive of a greater engine of desire creation than Instagram. Like just nonstop highlights globally. Some of them aren't even like humanly possible. You have no concept of the whole rest of their life. You're just creating this like surreal montage of like one potential outcome, but you're envying all these different pieces of millions of different lives that, for all kinds of reasons, are like unreasonable. Um, so I'm like careful with sort of my diet and media diet there. Um, but a few desires also keep you having like a handful of desires, not just like one overarching one, keeps you from that kind of sense of being like, my whole life hinges on this one thing that I don't have perfect control over. Um, but it's funny you said that. I've been following this guy, James Pierce, who's like enlightened, like he has achieved enlightenment. And this is a thing I talked with Naval recently about. He's like, there's enlightened people all over the internet, like dozens of them, like truly like enlightened beings that you might go your whole life hearing about, but never actually having met before. And you can like watch them on YouTube now. And James Pierce talks about this, like the relief that you described of being like, I achieved this thing that I desired, but I didn't actually need it. I just needed to be unburdened with the desire to achieve it. Like that's that moment of relief that you experience of like, I didn't need to win the championship. I just needed to stop wanting to win the championship. And you did it by winning it. Fantastic. But like you could have also achieved the same relief by like acutely just stopping desiring it. And like maybe somebody on the other team had that experience of like they lost the game, but they also got to stop desiring to win that goal because they graduated out and that was their last game. And they also had that palpable sense of relief. It just wasn't accompanied by like also winning, but they got to stop desiring too.
Have you found any examples in your life where you've been able to rid a desire that you were chasing without actually accomplishing it?
Oh yeah, like all the time. So like, I love comedy and I love comedians, and like there's like a, depending on how much comedy I'm consuming at the time, like we're such mimetic creatures, like we adopt the desires of like the thing that we're focusing our attention on, right? And so like you see people acting all this, you see like 13-year-old kids start acting like anime characters, and you're like, oh, you watch a lot of anime. Or you see girls start talking on speakerphone for no reason. It's like, you've been watching a lot of trash reality TV, because all of them do that for the mics, but there's no mic. You're just sitting on speakerphone at the pool because you've been watching too much reality TV. And so like my version of that is like, I watch a lot of comedy. I love comedians. I love the sort of jester's privilege to like tell the truth to society because you're making people laugh. I respect so many comedians as like great writers and observers of the human condition. And if I'm watching a lot of comedy and I'm really enjoying it, there's a big part of me that's like, I could do that. Like, I want to be a comedian. Like, I want to get on that stage. I bet I could write it. I bet I could write a tight five. I bet if I practice, I'd love to go be like, maybe should I move to New York and be an SNL writer? Like, try to get in the writer's room? Like, that would be fun. I bet I could do it. And then I'm like, wait. Like, these guys travel 300 days a year and work in shitty bars for 10 years to try to break through. Like, I've got a wife and a kid, a great job that I love, this other work. Like, why am I spending any time like desiring to do this thing that's going to take 10 years of work that I have no desire to actually do? And then it's like, oh, poof, gone. Right. Like, um, I have zero desire to be on the New York Times bestseller list because I know it's a crock of shit and like heavily manipulated and just like this, like it's a thing that so many authors want. And I talk to aspiring authors like all day, every day as at CEO Scribe, and like it's like I want to be a bestseller. I was like, okay, what does that mean? Why? They're like, well, that's what authors have. That's what famous authors have. I was like, do you know how they choose that list? Do you know what it means? Do you know how many copies you have to sell? Do you know that people cheat their way onto that list all the time? Do you know that it means you just have to like go through this handful of publishers? Do you know? And they're like, oh, well, like now I understand how it works. Like, I don't actually care about it. Or I care about it still because I care about the perception because other people don't actually know that it's a crock of shit. So like, I still want to put that sticker on me because other people will respect me more as a result of it. And like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be respected and wanting to be recognized. Like, I think we all have that. But there's like versions of it that are unassailable, and there's versions of it that are just like associating yourself with something. And so like, I don't know, depending on what sort of, perspective people have and what information they have, like those desires change constantly.
It's funny because you described honestly very similar to how I operate in my own mind. Like last night, I'm watching the U.S. Open tennis, and I'm like,
Mm.
I could be a really good tennis player. I'm like, I should just go join a country club. I should start playing tennis. And then I start walking it back. I'm like, well, if I really want to be just a good recreational tennis player, I'm gonna have to put this number of hours in, pay this money, spend this time away from my kids on the weekends. I'm like, probably not worth it. I'm like, I'll just be a good recreational pickleball player, which takes zero effort of me. I just show up for a couple hours and have some fun. You know, it's a nice little derivative of tennis that I can be solid at. But that's like that. I call it kind of like catastrophizing or spiraling is exactly how my brain operates. Where I'll get these desires because I love sports and I'll be watching sports and I'll be looking at all these different things. I'll be like, I can do this. Oh, I would be great in that role. And then I think about, oh, do I really want to pay the cost of entry? And 99 out of 100 times, 99 out of 100 times, the answer is no. For you, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I think like it's so funny that like Morgan Housel has a great thing about fancy cars that sounds exactly like that. That is like, you think if you buy this fancy car, people are going to see you in it and be like, oh, he's like, Colin's awesome. He drives a Lamborghini. But like, they actually just see a Lamborghini and imagine themselves in that Lamborghini. And like, it's like we're not watching tennis being like, oh wow, Novak Djokovic, he's so good, he's so tall, he's so handsome, he's so accomplished. We're like, you and me are watching that being like, we probably do that. Should we go do that? Like, I think we probably do a lot of that. Like, it's just such a funny, like, we're all so convinced or so earnestly like projecting this thing that like we think other people are evaluating us on, and it's just like everyone's just walking around thinking of themselves all the time, and very little actually matters, you know, through that lens of like, what are other people thinking about? Like, what are they thinking about me? What are they thinking about this decision I'm going to make? What are they thinking about how I'm going to spend my time, or how good I'm at tennis, or what car I drive? Like, nobody cares. Nobody's thinking about you. They're just thinking about themselves all the time.
That's literally, so I go through that with some of the athletes I work with. So I work on athletes with like an identity lens, creating identity outside of sport. And one of the number one, I guess, adversaries that athletes are facing today is that fear of opinion of others because of what media and social media has become. And it's really hard to get people to recognize exactly what you just articulated is nobody's actually thinking of you. They're thinking of themselves. Like you just said, we're like, we may appreciate something Novak Djokovic does, but at the end of the day, like we're thinking, I could do that, or maybe I could do that at a recreational level, or taking things from that to apply to my own life, not necessarily sitting there thinking that about that specific person, judging Novak Djokovic. And even if I was, you shouldn't care what I think. Like, you're not coming to me and asking me for advice. Same with all these other people. But that is, you just articulated it beautifully. Like, Nobody's actually thinking of you. Nobody actually cares.
This is where like the simulation hypothesis is actually like very useful. Like to just actually embody the fact that you're in the matrix and it's entirely possible that nobody else is real. And actually the further they are from you, they may or may not, like the less real they are. So like your wife, your kids, your family, your parents, like real, your friends, your coach, your teammates, like very, very real, but like not load bearing necessarily in your daily life. But like commenters on the internet, especially in like a bot age and an AI age and like, internet trolls, like very literally might not be real. Like it's just so far from anything that affects your daily life in a way that like if you give them equal weight in your head to the people who are actually like living in your house every day, like you're going to drive yourself fucking crazy. It's impossible. There are billions of them. They all believe something different. They have no respect for like your feelings or the cost of like accommodating them. You will get no reward for following that feedback from them. Like it just like building that muscle to just shut it out and dismiss it instantly before it even enters your brain is so useful.
Knowing that, how do you measure your own success? Like, what does success look like for you in each of your desires?
It's a very, I'd say it's a very like loose rubric, but they're all a little different. So like when I'm writing a book, I want to be really proud of the book. I got to put my name on the front. I've got to talk about it forever. I've got to like, be willing to put it in front of the test I always give authors when they come to me is like, if you are not willing to put this book in front of the most intimidating person in your network, the most important person, the person you respect the most, who you're like a little afraid of their opinion of you, then you did not work hard enough on your book and you didn't invest enough in making it great across all the different domains. And there's a lot of people that half-ass a book because they like think it'll be useful. And a book is not useful unless you whole ass it. Like you've got a full send and you've got to get like true excellence to the point where like you are proud to put it in front of people, or you're going to kind of secretly, subconsciously hide it and not talk about it, and it won't do you any good anyway. So in the like for my books, I need to be proud of them. That doesn't mean I need to get good feedback from that person who's most like that like hypothetical person who's most important or intimidating in my network. It just means I need to like have worked hard on it and be proud enough of it when I'm really honest with myself that I can put it out into the world confidently. Some of my books have like millions of readers, some have thousands of readers. I am equally proud of them as pieces of work, but like, so that's fantastic. It's really hard to predict. You never know quite what books are going to do what, especially when it's like, you're making art and you're doing it. You hope it'll have a good impact on people. You hope people will respond to it, but you can't control it. So I find it best to not like anchor and have any specific goal on it. In running a business, I'm CEO at Scribe, which I've been for about 2 years now. It's this kind of like a publisher for the internet age that basically does the opposite of what all the traditional publishers do, but at the same like level of quality. And we work with hundreds of authors a year, help people write books, help people publish books, help people market books. But like, I view my role there as the center of the ecosystem. The ecosystem is not just my team, but like customers, the team members and employees, our potential future customers, our investors, our suppliers, the freelancers we work with, in the broader community. So there's all these people that need to have win-win relationships with this company that I'm sort of trying to balance all of the different interests. And so if I can find like win-win relationships between everybody involved, which is a constant rebalancing act because it's a dynamic system. But if everybody feels like they are better off for being a part of this ecosystem, and that's true over a long period of time, then like that's my measure of success there. I want investors to be happy they invested. I want the team to be happy they work here. I want customers to be happy they did business with us. I want suppliers to be very happy that they're working with us. And I want us to have this like earned reputation for excellence over a long period of time. So like that's my goal there. It's not dollars, it's not money, it's not milestones, it's not a Mount Rushmore of customers. It's just like, am I being a good steward of the ecosystem? Um, the investing, like I want my investors to make money. I want to be in the top, like, if you're in the top quartile of funds, like the top quarter, you're basically like, you're in venture, you're delivering some of the best returns in any asset class that there is. So like that is a responsibility that I have to my investors and the bar that I want to clear for them. However, the like true North Star of the whole exercise is like, can I fund people? Like the tagline for a fund is obsessive geniuses building utopian technology. And so like, I want to find the true pioneers and like misfits and like kooks that are building crazy stuff that will be a mega cap company. Like what are the most important companies in the world in 2040 or 2050? And where are they today and who's building them and what do they look like at the earliest stages? And how can we be sure that those people have the resources they need to get off the ground and move faster and have a bigger impact? And that's a really super fun exercise. It's going to take decades to figure out if you were correct on that. It's so like you can't anchor on that day to day, but you can try to sort of become ever better at it by studying the recent past and being super immersed in the present and like navigating those things and reading about what the future could look like over the next couple decades and trying to understand where this is one of the tests of reality. Can you understand where reality is going given all the forces at work? It's just a wildly fun thing to do with like buddies of mine, founders we get to meet, so we get to learn. Really, really fun. And it feels like living in a sci-fi book. So like that is like, and then the overarching of all of them is like, am I having fun? Am I still a good person? Am I still present with my family? Am I still being responsible steward of like all the, the different responsibilities that I have in life, taking care of the people around me and like taking care of my health, which is like the foundation of all of those. And so you try to like not, you can't, if I'm successful at the company and the fund, but I'm like slowly eroding my personal health and my personal relationships, like that's a loss. Like big L, no win, you get no credit, 0 points, God have mercy on your soul. Like stop, reset, unplug, like go to the cabin in the woods, restart. You got to clear the slate because you're too focused on winning the wrong thing and not zoomed out enough. For me personally, that's like the choice that I'm trying to make, and the people that I look up to always have that kind of a balanced life and a long-term perspective.
So going off deeper on that point, when you have conflicting goals or conflicting measurements of success and one starts overriding the other, how do you know when it's time to prioritize or create a season of one over the other? Particularly if, think about like from the revenue side of things, your investors aren't happy. You need to right the ship relatively quickly. Well, hey, I'm also not spending as much time as home being the father I want to be. How do you create a process to make those types of decisions?
Have you read the book "The Courage to Be Disliked"?
No, I have not.
It's
Add it to
kind
my list though.
it's kind of a lot of people are turned off by the title, and I don't blame you. Like I was at first too, but I cracked it. I listened to it actually, so I popped it on a long drive one day, and it was. I don't ascribe to every word in that book, but one of the things in there, it's a dialogue, so it's a really easy read, and it's like kind of a kid trying to learn from a master, and they have this discussion, and it's all about this psychologist called Adler. So it's Adlerian psychology, and one of the things that really stuck with me in it was the separation of tasks. And so he's got a really, really clear prescription for like, you are responsible for the things you're responsible for, and it's much more extreme than you might think. Of like, if you're a parent, you might feel like you're responsible for your kid doing their homework, but you're not. The homework is the kid's responsibility, right? And so like, there's a lot of things that people are always trying to sort of like put tasks on your plate and make them feel like it's your task, or vice versa. You might spend a lot of time being like, oh my God, I've got, like described as like 27 people. And so, there are a lot of CEOs who are like, it's my responsibility to make sure every one of those 27 people are all doing everything every day and like maxed out efficiency and that everything is getting done. And like, that's a quick way to burn yourself out. And so like, I try to revisit that, like, what are my true tasks? What are the hours that I have in the day? Like, am I being responsible with my time? And am I tackling the right things in the right order? And I try to externalize that, right? So like, if my if I tell my wife, like, my health is the most important thing, and this was a huge unlock for me that Naval said. He's like, my personal health is the single most important priority in my life. It's not my businesses that, have billions of dollars at stake, that thousands of people are depending on me. It's not even my family's health. It's my personal physical and mental health. And that's the first priority I tackle in the day, because if I don't have that, everything else comes down and I can't do any of the other responsibilities in my life. And so I've tried to, like, when you're working really hard, you can convince yourself that, like, I don't have time to go to the gym. I'm going to eat, fast food. I'm going to do this. And like trying to, and this is, I'm not perfect. It's an ever improving sort of standard that you're trying to work towards, but like, make your schedule and your decisions reflect your priorities and understand what tasks are truly yours. Like, you cannot outsource your workout. You cannot outsource deepening your relationship with your partner. You cannot outsource your parenting. You can get help, but you can't outsource like your presence as a parent to a certain extent. But there's a lot of things that like we take on that aren't actually our tasks. Or there's a lot of times that I take on 40 hours. I mentally wake up and say, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. That's my goal for the day. Like, I just assigned myself, and around like 2 p.m., I realized I assigned myself 40 hours of work to do in this like 8-hour day, in which there's going to be at least 2 hours of surprises that I didn't account for. And it's like, okay, I need to just like readjust my expectations, re-triage my list. What is the single most important high leverage thing that I need to do like right now? Okay, I'm gonna try to like tackle that, and I'm getting better at like every single day I leave important things undone every single day, and that used to like really stress me out. But it's stressed me out for long enough, and I've come to more terms to deal with it, that like you can just allow things to be undone in an unstressed way. Like, my mom actually told me
It's
one time, it's like, you'll die with work left undone. And I was like, huh, fuck. Like, that's correct.
honestly, that's something I probably need to hear right now, because I'm in one of those stages where, so usually I say my physical and mental health is my top priority because everything's downstream from there, similar to what Naval says. But this last like probably 6 weeks is the least I've worked out and eaten correctly in my life, for that line that you said, I don't have time. When reality, that just means it's not a priority when it's supposed to be, because I've been taking on extra work tasks. I've been trying to do more. I've been trying to create more opportunities. I've been, doing my best to spend more time with my kids. And I need that reset. Like, hey, you're going to die with work undone, because there's a lot of times I go to bed and I'm thinking, I didn't respond to that email. I need to do this tomorrow. This needs to be a priority. I still need to find, at least 30 minutes to work out, and finding that soft landing to where I can be like, it's okay if everything doesn't get done. And probably everything is going to be perfectly fine if that gets done a little bit later than expected.
Yeah. Like, especially it's unfortunate that like those epiphanies usually come in the hardest moments of like when you have a crisis, when you have a near death experience. I find that people are really good at it when they're actually married to like doctors. Because
My
like no
wife's
matter
a
how shit your
physician's
day is,
assistant.
yeah, okay, yeah. So like you can't complain to her. Like, I don't know if she's like got a rough assignment or not, but like my mom was an
She
ER
does.
nurse for like decades.
Uh,
Yeah. So like, you know, there's a lot of people whose jobs are literally life and death. Or who are getting like screamed at by people who are dealing with life and death. And it's just like, our shit is not that hard. Like, it's just work. And the people that are a few decades ahead of me, that are like mentors, or people in my network that I admire the most, are just still like, actually Xavier, who's one of the partners of Enduring Ventures, who is my partners in Scribe. We had a super stressful period, and I was like, felt like everything was on fire. And I was like, he was just kind of like working through the problem in this like calm way. And I was like, I think I asked him, like, aren't you like worried about this? And he's like, I don't really get stressed about much anymore. And I was like, what a good line. Like every word of that is like a useful thing. And he just like delivered it so casually. He's like, yeah, it's just like, in a follow up later, I was like, what would make you stress? And he's like imminent physical danger. Like, I don't know. But like, we don't deal with that like it would take a lot to deal with that in like the legal, Western American business market is like, yeah, this dude like was doing startups in Africa and like lived in Tanzania for a while and like on safari, all that. Like he's done business in much harder places than like, you know, America. And so I think, his bar for stress is just like, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like, fine, whatever, we'll be fine. Which is just a useful thing because then you go back to being like, all right, this is a game and I can like have fun playing it and like I can do my work with a good attitude and like Naval had another, I don't think it's in the book, but he had a great tweet of like, imagine how productive you'd be if you weren't stressed. Like your brain just works better. And more creative. You're looser. Like I'm sure the athletics version of that too is like you can't get too wrapped up in the stakes. You got to just like stay loose, play for love of the game, and like things take care of themselves.
Yeah, it's funny in the athletic world that like stay loose, like getting in that flow state. There's so many different components that like wrap into it, but then once you're there, it's like you're not even thinking. Like you're just doing. And I talk to different athletes all the time in that space. Like, well, how do you get there? And everybody's a little bit different. Some people it's, for the love of the game. Some people have to force themselves to care less. But the point remains, like I always say it comes back to like that midwit meme. Are you familiar with the midwit
Oh yeah.
meme?
Oh yeah.
I am like firm all into that midwit meme where it's complete opposite ends of the spectrum get to the same conclusion and everybody else is just in the middle. And I strive obviously to be on the right end of the midwit meme. I like to not think dumb's not the right word, but you get what I'm saying. Like I
The
want to
trap
be
of
so in tune with myself.
the trap of the midwit meme is that you can't be the person on the right, so you just need to embrace that you're the person on the left, or you will end up the person in the middle.
Aha. Well, thank you. I needed that. Because I'm definitely in the middle right now.
If you're still trying to be
So
the one on the right, yeah, then you're the one in the middle. Like that's how I read the meme. Like just embrace that you're the one
uh,
on the left, and as soon as you own it, as soon as your desire to be the one on the right goes away, and you embrace being the one on the left, you're having a good time, and you're getting the same result. It's
you
fantastic.
know, it pumps me up because I think I've brought this up 3 straight podcasts. I think you're the first person that's actually seen the midwit meme.
Oh
And
my God, what are these people doing with their lives? Get on the internet.
hey man, that's what I'm saying.
Come
Some of these
inside.
athletes, man. Some of these athletes, man. Um, but you articulated it much more eloquently than I could have, and provided me my own education, which is why I love the podcast in general, just learning from other people. Um, you talked about being the CEO of Scribe. That was another venture that seemed to have come up in an unorthodox manner, where it was you were just trying to kind of save Scribe from going into bankruptcy, and then all of a sudden you become CEO. Can you walk me through that process of how that happened?
Yeah, it was kind of a wild. I didn't know this was a thing that really happened. So I was as surprised as anybody else. But like the quick version of the story is, I was a customer of Scribe's. I published the Almanac and Naval with Scribe, and I loved my experience. I think what they do is a really important counterbalance to traditional publishing. I think it's like the model that makes sense. In the age of the internet, where like there's no gatekeepers to who can publish what. There's no like, you don't need a bunch of editors in New York like telling you who can publish it and how to publish. So Scribe, the business model is like, you just pay us to do the work of a traditional publisher, but we don't take any editorial control, we don't take any creative control or legal control, and you keep 100% of your royalties. So if you want to like bet on yourself as an author, like you hire Scribe, and whether you sell 1,000 books or give away 1,000 books or sell 1,000,000 copies, like you are the CEO of your book, which is the truth anyway. Whatever. It's a whole long rant about the 150-year-old business model of traditional publishing, but I'll spare you. But this founders of this business were Tucker Max and Zach Obrant. I don't know if the name Tucker Max means anything to you, but he was like a god tier blogger turned author, sold millions and millions of copies, hilarious books, like absolute savant of a writer, and just a brilliant guy. He did like Frat Tire, like the original Frat Tire stuff, which is hilarious. But he started this business because he had 4 New York Times bestsellers, and all these people kept reaching out to him, be like, help me write a book. How do I get a book out there? How do I market my book? And so he started this business and built it up for 8 years. And he sold it to a guy who, through a whole series of misadventures over like 18 months, bankrupted the company. Like never hired a CFO, never created a board, just like destroyed the company, misrepresented a lot of things along the way. It turned into this huge mess. And I was an author who got caught up in that. And so I was like a customer of a bankrupt company. I'd prepaid all this money and the business disappeared overnight. It was just chaos. But I know people who buy companies and who do turnarounds. And so I started making some phone calls to friends, and these guys, Sieva and Xavier from Enduring Ventures, I met at a few conferences. I followed them a long time. They had a background in publishing and they had worked in turnarounds before. And so they flew to Austin. They met the team. They were like, this business fundamentally makes sense. The team is amazing. We think we can like build this thing back up. And so it ended up that the bankruptcy was like complete and total in a giant crater. So they had to like start a new company, buy the assets from the bank, and hire for some of the team. I was just kind of like, all right, great. Like I helped this company get back on its feet. The team, some of the team, a lot of the team, like kept their jobs. And I got to keep writing books and publishing with Scribe. And that's what I wanted. And to my surprise, they called me like a month after they had bought everything and were like, hey, we think you should come run this company. And I was like, haven't really been a CEO before. You guys know that, right? And they were like, yeah, but we like your instincts. You know, you like, you're a creator in this market. You've been a customer. You told the story. You sold us on the company. Like how, do you want to give it a shot? And so I, some long conversations with my wife and trying to figure out how we could fit it into our life, but like decided to give it a try. And so 2 years in now and, growing like a very healthy growth and rebuilt the team, and a bunch of customers are coming back, and we were able to finish. We've given away millions of dollars of like free work and try to make up for all of that chaos that happened with the authors that we can. And it's super, super fun to like work with authors. Like I love our customers. I love talking to people about their books and how they're going to use their books to build their business. And lots of podcasters, lots of creators like want to add a book to their portfolio and use it to kind of like, grow their perception, grow their audience, like add an income stream, unlock new opportunities. And it's super fun. Like I get to merge like my entrepreneurial side with my like creative writing side and meet all kinds of interesting people, and get to build this ecosystem and like work with a bunch of fascinating, talented people in the publishing world. It's awesome.
How have all the different experiences that you've lived in your life allowed you to be so competent in so many different areas that seem to somehow all interconnect anyway?
I have no idea. Like this is one of those, like, I've got a post that's like, when you're a sufficiently generalist, you become a unique specialist. And like, I think there's a really interesting thing to lean into where like the more unique you become, the more advantaged, like the more unique value you can create. And so I think there's all kinds of like forces working against this, right? Like there's so much pressure to be like, all right, you want this good degree, then you want to go to this like good school, and then you want to get into this like prestigious organization and do, your first 2 years in this management program. And like, you need to go through investment banking, and you want to go through like this firm. And if you can't get to this firm, you go to this firm. And it's like, people are pursuing sameness actually when they do that without, it's like the zero sum, like how high can I climb on the status hierarchy, which is a very clear game. And so I understand why people want to play it. And especially to athletes, it's probably quite natural, right? Like you put me in a room with 20 guys, I'm going to try to beat them all and be the number one guy in this room at this activity. Like whatever the activity is, I'm going to try to do it. But the like quote unquote real world actually rewards uniqueness, I think much more reliably than excellence. And so you can get rewarded for being the best at something, or you can be the only person who could do something. And one is a much easier path, I think, than the other. I don't begrudge either one of them, but I think there's a lot more forces pushing you towards like be the best path. And it's a much clearer view. And so I think a lot more people feel like they have to chase it, even if their heart isn't really in becoming the best at that thing. And so I would say I sort of accidentally did a bunch of stuff because I just like pursued what I was curious about. I didn't go get an MBA. I just started writing a blog. Writing that blog led me to writing this book. Writing this book led me to being CEO of this company. I'm like, I don't know. The jury's out on whether I'm a competent CEO for like 10 more years, but like to the extent that I am competent, it will be because of like the people that I met that I uniquely sort of sought out or found interesting. It'll be because of the books that I chose to read. It'll be because of how I pursued this job and like how I tried to tackle it and improve at it and improve myself as a result of being in it. So I think there's like there's just an amount of like faith it takes to embrace your own, like leaning on your own curiosity. And that's not an excuse to do nothing, but is an excuse to like be yourself. And that's a difficult like instruction to follow. Like, because the next question is like, who are you? Who am I? Like, that's a really deep like Buddhist rabbit hole that you can spend a lot of time and like ayahuasca and acid and like meditation retreats going down and still not come up with an answer because there may not actually be an answer. So you don't need to like write a paper about who you are and then like execute that. You just need to live in the moment and like do things that you find fun and interesting. Like I'm gonna bring David Deutsch up again. He just had an interview the other day where he talked about like we create value to the extent that we are unique. He also talks about the fun criterion of like, if you are having fun doing the thing, that's the most reliable indicator that you're doing something for its own sake. And that means you're doing something that's true to you and you're doing something that is more likely to be unique and that you're likely to go further because you're enjoying it. And so you're likely to get better results as a byproduct. So there's a lot of like, you see that's a piece of wisdom that like you see pop up over and over and over again across all these different domains, which to me just puts like tally marks next to like, all right, that's probably something close to a fundamental truth. But it's something that's hard to learn because like everything that we are taught in school is like, the first 20 years of most of our lives are like, you're all going to sit in this room. You're all going to take this same test. We're going to grade them all the same way. And we're going to stack rank you based on this. And we're going to evaluate you on the same thing as a group every time. And it's not unless you're in like a Montessori program or something like that, that you're actually like encouraged to be unique and individual. And so it takes us all some time to unwind this like zero sum stack ranked fucking brainwash thing that we all go through for our first 20 years of our lives. Or you just embrace being weird very early on and opt out of the game, which is why you see some of the Teal Fellows be so successful. I don't know if you follow any of the like Teal Fellowship stuff, but those are like, the dropout geniuses, and they have a higher rate of building billion-dollar companies than Y Combinator. Like just because they're so just doing their own thing for its own sake from the time they're 14 years old, like they don't need anybody telling them who they are. They don't do any time soul searching. They just like chase what they're curious about with like gusto from the very first moment.
Do you think so? Like calling yourself like that generalist line that you used, would you say that's equivalent to being like a jack of all trades, or is there a distinguish between that? I have a follow-up question based off your answer.
I don't. I think a lot of people treat those as interchangeable, and I don't know. That would require like knowing the definition inside everybody's head. Like, I think jack of all trades might imply that you have to be able to do everything, which may or may not be true. I think a generalist, especially with like one or two deep specializations, implies like a little more of a spectrum. But like, yeah, I don't know if I have a great,
right? Yeah. Reason I ask, right, is because I give a critique of myself where I'm really good in a lot of different domains. Like,
mm-hmm.
I can talk to different perspectives. I can talk to different industries and different skill sets. But I would say sometimes I wonder if I just deep dove into one area that I'm good at, could I be elite at that one thing? Whereas my general curiosity, though, like true curiosity, takes me in different domains. And so I know a lot about a lot of different things, and I can use it to kind of shape my own uniqueness. But I always have that question in my head: would I be better off spending all my time doing this one thing?
So it sounds like what you are authentically doing, what is like natural for you, is to be a generalist, and you're just spending a bunch of time questioning whether you should be authentic to yourself or whether you should force yourself to do something that is inauthentic to you that you're not already doing.
That was well
But
read
like
back.
when you phrase it
That's
that
why
way,
you
the
do what
question,
you do.
well, when you phrase it that way, the question answers itself, right? Like
Yeah.
you're evaluating yourself from this like, what would the optimal Colin do? Like you're playing yourself in a video game of like, what should I make this guy do to get the best outcome? And like, that's not actually the question. The question is like, what does Colin do already? And like, how can we do more of what he loves to do naturally? And like, let that happen, you know?
That's awesome. That helps. Now, for you, you've been in the shoes of being an entrepreneur, you've been an author, you're now investing, you're an angel investor, you're CEO. What attributes do you look for either in a person or in a company where you're like, this is it?
On the investing side,
Yeah.
that is a $1 trillion question, that I would like to spend a lot of time writing about. I think there's a lot of things. I do think one is authenticity, which we've talked about a bunch. Like, is the thing that this person is doing, like, is it their life's work? Is it something that almost only they could uniquely either discover or build or exploit or explore? Is there a long trajectory of them already doing it? To some extent, I also want to know if they're a generalist. Like, to be able to build a company over a long term, like, if you could be the most brilliant engineer in the world, but if you don't have an interface to the rest of the world, if you can't help people, if you can't communicate in a way that people can get on board, like, you're not going to get traction. And the world is full of like, and history is full of like unaccomplished geniuses because they couldn't interface. And so they either need a partner who can interface, or they need to have that skill that is like the ability to build belief, and coordinate people and get them on board. They need the determination to stick with something for a very long period of time. They need like an almost missionary zeal, to stick to do this thing, and stick with it through multiple stages. They need to be a person who knows how to grow, because the person you are who starts the company is not going to be the person who needs to run the company at $100 million and at $1 billion and to be the CEO of it, that whole time. But it certainly helps. I think like a certain. I'm reading this book about the Teal Fellowship right now because I'm going to have the creators on my podcast shortly. And one of the things they talk about is like, we don't have a great word for it in English, but like craftiness, almost like a combination of like determination and craftiness that is a little bit like irreverent. It's like industrious irreverence or something like that, which is why Y Combinator, when they're looking for founders, they always ask like, what system have you hacked? Right? Like, that's one of their standard questions. And so they want to see someone who's active, someone who's irreverent, and someone who can like close a loop and actually like make a change in the world that the world was not expecting or didn't want to have happen or wasn't quite built to like allow that outcome. And that's actually a pretty good, reliable indicator. I mean, maybe first and foremost, somebody that's like high integrity that I'm excited to talk to. Like, I do not want to be like backing evil, Bond villain types. And so there's people who are highly ambitious and very smart, but who have like this weird dark energy that like you just have to, like, intuit. Even if they say all the right things, you're just like, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but my gut says no, and I'm just going to trust my like deep genetic, subconscious ability to like assess motive and just like steer clear of this. there's a lot, there's some science, but it's a lot of art. And the individual selection. I think like as a portfolio, selection is a little more scientific, but I going back to our tagline, like obsessive geniuses building utopian technology, there's a lot of people that are going to make money doing things that I don't think make the world a better place. And so I picture, this like solar punk utopia 2050 and work backwards towards like what capabilities does humanity need to build in order to like make the world better, to create more abundance, to serve more people, to help them live longer, be smarter, be more creative, be more knowledgeable. And I just try to put assets, toward the people that I think are building singular, irreplaceable, high impact companies for the future. And I think there's a paradox there where like if you successfully do that, you will dramatically outperform financially all the people that are just focused on driving financial returns, because they're going to be necessarily short-sighted where you're long-sighted, and the big returns in venture come from the second 20 years or the second decade in the 20 years, not the first 10 years. And it's just really, really hard to grow to like analyze that from a financial perspective when the company is a year or two old. There's no trajectory there. There's just a person and a vision and a technology and the sort of moment that company is like born into. So I'm sure that sounds like an inane ramble, but like it's a thing that I have not yet written an entire book about. So my thoughts aren't organized. They're just like all in there stew, not on a rack,
For those intangible pieces, is there any advice you can give to people to develop some of those intangibles? Whether, I think integrity is one that's pretty natural, but some of those other ones, the craftiness, the authenticity, how can people develop those skill sets?
We've talked about authenticity a lot. I think craftiness is an interesting question of like whether it's born or developed. The answer is always has to be both to some extent, I think. Um, Craftiness and agency is like another good word for it. If you're unfamiliar with this term or you want to just go deeper on it, my buddy George Mack wrote a post that should be a book. It's on highagency.com. Like, please go read that essay. It's like one of the best essays ever written. And it's, if
He
you
was
are
on
not
Modern
naturally crafty.
Wisdom,
Yeah,
wasn't
he goes
he?
on. Yeah, him and Chris are buddies. He goes on, I don't know, once a year or something like that.
Yeah, I was just I definitely listened to him talk about agency with Chris Williamson.
Yeah, I think that was his most recent episode. But like George is a really good mental models guy. All his episodes on Modern Wisdom are good. I'd go back through the history. But I think the essay is much better than the episode, even because it's just, I mean, he wrote and wrote and wrote, and like a bunch of us edited that essay and like tried to refine it. So it's just a little tighter than the conversation, but some of these ideas repeat. I mean, I think you can practice agency. I think you can say like, what is the thing that I want to have happen in the world, and like, how can I make this happen? What would improve my life, and how can I get it done? Like, what's a thing that doesn't work now, works shitty now in my life, that I could make work better, that most people don't even bother to improve. So I mean, there's famous examples of it. There's probably a lot of personal examples, but like you can identify these people by like, who would you call to get you out of a third world jail? That's like one of the metaphors used in agency.com. But I'd say like one that's going on in my life is like, I haven't solved this test yet, but it's a place that I'm like practicing this mindset, which is the house right next to ours is up for sale. And like most people would do nothing. I'm like, oh, having the right people move next door would be a huge quality of life improvement for us. So like, how can I be sure that an awesome family, maybe with like young kids that are like close to the same age as us, with like a couple that we like hanging out with, like how can I build a community here? And so I'm like, you got the listing, called a bunch of friends, send the listing to their family members, like called the real estate agent. And I'm like, hey, we live right next door to this listing. Like, if I can help you sell this house to the right family, please let me know. Like, they can come over anytime. We got like a shared fence. We'll be good neighbors, come use the pool, like all these things to try to like just push the universe in your favor a little bit. And I'm sure there's like an even higher agency way to do it. That's probably like go recruit your neighbors or something like that, which is not a thing that I've like put hours into yet. But I think there's like, you collect these stories. Actually, Founders Podcast is like, I'm like wearing the shirt right now. It's one of my very favorite pieces of media. And like, if you listen to a bunch of these stories of the history of founders, like you will hear stories of high agency over and over and over and over again. And they'll just start to slowly rewire your brain as to like what's possible. Like a famous example, it's kind of an arcane example actually, but like there's a book called The Fish That Ate the Whale that David did an episode on. And like read the book, but if you don't have time to read the book, definitely listen to the episode. It was this like penniless Russian immigrant to the United States in the, I want to say early 1800s, and like literally $0 homeless teenager living in New Orleans. And after a few decades in the book, he's the sole owner of like the biggest fruit company. He's importing bananas from like Central American countries. And he owns the company that owns like 70% of the land of Guatemala. And like multiple times in this book, not just once, multiple times, he has to hire a militia and overthrow the government of a Central American country in order to protect his business and keep bananas importing to the United States at low cost. Now, I'm not like endorsing that as a strategy, but like that's fucking high agency. So like expand your scope of what you consider possible in the world. And this is a trait that you see across so many great founders. Richard Branson's another great one. Like read Richard Branson's books and you will see from a very young age, he was like, 16 at a private school. He's like, I'm just going to go start a magazine. I'm going to drop out. I'm going to buy a houseboat. I'm going to start a recording studio on this houseboat. I'm going to start an airline. Fuck it. I don't know what I'm doing. He started an airline in an airport, like with a whiteboard because like his flight got canceled. Like he just breaks shit and does shit in like fun and interesting ways. And high agency people are just like fun to be around. Like it's, they always have a story. They're always working on something new. It doesn't always work, but they just like push the boundaries of reality like a little more than you might expect. And a lot of times reality rearranges itself around willful people who are like taking action. And like, that's that is an endless well of like interesting stories and an interesting life.
Well, hey, I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you coming on the show. What's next for you? What do we got to look forward to? What do you got to promote out here?
I've very soon, very soon, I'll have an updated version of not the whole book of the Almanac of Naval, but the audiobook. So I did an interview with Naval, an extended interview. So we're going to add some cool like bonus chapters to the audiobook. So if you love the Naval book, check that out. And it should be in a bunch more bookstores soon. So we're doing a push on that. I'm final stages of the book of Elon, which is a curation of Elon Musk's most useful ideas. So that should be out early next year. And again, if you like Naval, you'll love that book. I'm excited to get that one out there. I'm getting incredible early feedback on that one. So I hope that like my mission with that is to make like millions of Musks and just like help people be high agency engineering builders in the next generation, really like build some cool sci-fi shit. If you want to write a book, like come chat with me at Scribe. I'm happy to do that. If you want to invest in some crazy sci-fi shit like asteroid mining and, nuclear fusion and, the AT&T of the solar system, like come check out our fund. We're doing fun stuff.
Heck yeah, man. I appreciate that. Appreciate you coming on. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week. Download the pod, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out at athletic42.com. 5 stars only, baby. Appreciate you, Eric.